In today's lesson, we'll be learning how to square binomials. If you recall, squaring involves an exponent, and usually an exponent of 2. And a binomial contains 2 terms. If you look at the prefix, bi corresponds to 2, just like how a bicycle has 2 wheels. As you can see, this is a binomial since it has 2 terms, and it is also being squared since it has an exponent of 2. If you look over to the right, we have another binomial because it has 2 terms, and it is being squared, which means it has an exponent of 2. The only difference between these two binomials is the addition sign and the subtraction sign. When you have a binomial that has an addition sign between the two terms, you can use this shortcut to expand it. And when you have a binomial with a subtraction sign in between the two terms, you can use this shortcut when expanding it. And that creates a perfect square trinomial. In our first example, we want to simplify the following: y equals x plus 4 squared. If you recall, this is a binomial since it contains 2 terms, and that 2 means it is being squared. Therefore, we are squaring a binomial. Let's begin this question by rewriting our given information, which is y equals x plus 4 squared. Remember, when you square something, it is being multiplied by itself. It is not being multiplied by 2. That is a common misconception. So that would be x plus 4 multiplied by x plus 4. Now this turns into a question that you already know how to do, and you can use the chart method to complete this question. So I'm going to write x over here plus 4 over here, x over here, and plus 4 over there. Now we are going to multiply these terms. X times x is x squared. X multiplied by positive 4 is positive 4x. X times positive 4 again is positive 4x. And positive 4 multiplied by positive 4 is positive 16. We're going to take these terms and write it over to the left. So that simplifies to x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. You'll notice that positive 4x and positive 4x are like terms. Therefore, you can go ahead and collect them. So positive 4x plus 4x is positive 8x, and that plus 16 stays exactly the same. Therefore, we've just simplified the following to y equals x squared plus 8x plus 16. Remember that this was using the chart method which you've learned previously. This is the exact same question as our previous example. The only difference is that we're going to be using the shortcut to solve this. As you can see, we have a binomial which is being squared. The sign in between the two terms is positive. Now, the shortcut for binomial with a positive sign between the two terms was a plus b squared, and the shortcut was a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. At this point, I want you to compare our binomial here, x plus 4, to our binomial here, which is a plus 4. So x and a are in the same spot, 4 and b are in the same spot. That means a is actually x and b is actually 4. So at this point, we're going to rewrite our shortcut, which is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. What you're going to do is you're going to substitute in these values. You're going to substitute in the values of x and the values of 4. So instead of putting a, I'm going to replace it with x in brackets, and it gets squared. The 2 and the positive sign stays the same. Instead of a, I'm going to replace it with x. Instead of b, I'm going to replace it with 4. And instead of b, I'm going to replace that with 4. And at this point, you just need to simplify this. So x to the power of 2 is just x squared. Now this one's a little complicated. You have 2 times x times 4. So 2 times 4 is 8, and the x stays the same. And over here you have 4 squared, which is the same thing as 4 times 4, which is 16. So this is the shortcut method that you can use when squaring binomials. In our second example, we want to simplify the following, which is y equals x minus 3 squared. Again, you'll notice that we have a binomial and it is being squared. So I'm going to begin by rewriting my question, which is y equals x minus 3 squared. Remember, when something is being squared, it is multiplying by itself. So that would be x minus 3 multiplied by x minus 3. At this point, you can go ahead and use your chart method. So I'm going to put x there and a negative 3 here. I'm going to put x here and a negative 3 here. You're going to multiply these terms now. X times x is x squared. X multiplied by negative 3 is negative 3x. And x multiplied by negative 3 is negative 3x. And negative 3 multiplied by negative 3, be careful here, that is positive 9. So I'm going to rewrite my terms over here. X squared minus 3x minus 3x plus 9. I want to collect like terms. Negative 3x and negative 3x are like terms. So that leaves me with negative 6x plus 9. As you can see, we have the exact same question as before. However, we're going to be using the shortcut method. You'll notice that we have a binomial, which is being squared. The sign in between the two terms is a negative sign, which means we're going to be using this shortcut. So a minus b squared becomes a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. You'll notice that these are two binomials. X is in the same position as a, and 3 is in the same position as b. Therefore, I can say a is equal to x, and b is equal to 3. And at this point, I'm going to rewrite my shortcut, which is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. At this point, I'm going to replace the a's with x's, and I'm going to replace the b's with 3's. So in a sense, I'm subbing in these values. Instead of a, I'm going to write x in brackets. Instead of a, I'm going to write an x. Instead of b, I'm going to write a 3. Instead of b, I'm going to write a 3, and the squared stays the same. You want to simplify this now. So x squared is just x squared. Now, this is a little bit tricky. You have negative 2 multiplied by x multiplied by 3. So let's multiply the numbers. Negative 2 times positive 3 is negative 6. The x stays the same. And over here, you have 3 to the power of 2, which is 3 times 3, which is equal to 9. Therefore, we've just simplified our binomial, which was squared, using this shortcut method. In our third example, we want to simplify the following. Y equals 2x minus 5 squared. Again, you'll notice that we have a binomial, which is being squared. However, if you look at the sign in between the two terms, you have a subtraction sign. We're going to be using a shortcut to simplify this. So the shortcut you should be using is a minus b squared. And that simplifies to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So at this point, you want to see which terms are in the same positions. A in this situation is 2x, and b in this situation is 5. So here we're going to rewrite our shortcut, which is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Instead of writing a, I'm going to write 2x, and instead of writing b, I'm going to write 5. So I'm going to put 2x in brackets, and I'm going to square it. Over here, I'm going to write 2x in brackets. Instead of b, I'm going to write 5. And instead of b here, I'm also going to write a 5, and it also is squared. Now, the next step is a little bit tricky. So our first term is 2x squared. So you need to multiply 2x by 2x. So let's do this one step at a time. 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. Now, over here, I just want you to multiply the numbers. Negative 2 times 5. So negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, and negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, and the x stays the same. And last but not least, you have 5 squared, which is the same thing as 5 times 5, which is 25. In our last example, we want to simplify the following: y equals 2x plus 6 squared. Again, you'll notice that we have a binomial since there are two terms, and it is being squared since it has an exponent of 2. You'll notice that it has an addition sign between the two terms, which means we can use a very specific shortcut. And the shortcut we're going to use is a plus b squared, which simplifies to a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Again, you want to notice the positions of the different terms. So a and 2x are in the same positions, and b and 6 are also in the same positions. And the next step, we're going to rewrite our shortcuts: a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Now, instead of writing a, you're going to replace it with 2x. Instead of writing b, you're going to replace it with 6. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to replace a with 2x in brackets. The exponent stays the same. I'm going to replace a with 2x. I'm going to replace b with a 6. And I'm going to replace the b here with a 6, and the exponent of 2 stays exactly the same. This very last step is the most difficult step. So let's start with 2x squared. Remember, 2x squared is the same thing as 2x times 2x. Let's look at the numbers first. What is 2 times 2? 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. Now, the next part is tricky, so I just want you to take a look at the numbers right now. I have 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 6. 2 times 2 times 6. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 6 is 24. The x stays the same. And last but not least, I have 6 to the power of 2, which is the same thing as 6 times 6, which is 36.